Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
The Scripps Institute in La Jolla and ran his frequency therapies because he believed that all cancers are tied to pathogens. And he just needed to figure out what the pathogen was, find the frequency to vibrate the pathogen to the point where it explodes in the body or disrupts it, and so that the immune system can do its job with the white blood cells, the white ninjas, and take care of it. And that's basically, in essence, what I learned. But they went after Royal Raymond Rife, destroyed his labs, did fires because he wouldn't sell his technology and his inventions to, whatever evil cabal at that time, the medical mafia at that time wanted to control his invention, because they don't want technologies of health and healing to be available, because these cabal, deep state, elitists, they all believe in genocide, and they all believe that they're all eugenics. And so that took me down the road of eugenics, and I started studying eugenics. And from that, I read all their books, and I found out that eugenics really started in California through the mental hospitals, where they were doing all kinds of experiments to basically sterilize and lobotomize anybody that they considered to be unworthy to live. And that was they tested it on white, dumb people, Mexican people, Native people, and Black people. And that was the story of eugenics before Hitler. I mean, Hitler looked at our eugenics program, our medical mafia in California, and was like,
"Hey, you're onto something.
I want that." I was like, oh my gosh. So the reason why when I started going down that rabbit hole, I realized that what happened is to Royal Raymond Rife, which is all at the time of these eugenics, genocidal, scientific elites were experimenting and sterilizing people that they feel were unfit and unworthy. And that ties into the Planned Parenthood, that ties into Margaret Sanger, who was also part of that eugenics movement. And the reason why that's important is because they go after reproduction. They do not want us to be able to reproduce and have healthy children. They believe that only they deserve to live, and they don't want to compete for resources. They create scarcity. And when Royal Raymond's Rife when he wouldn't sell, they destroyed him. And then they took his technology and brought it underground, primarily through DARPA, which is the biotech arm of the military industrial complex. Okay. They're the ones that weaponize the bioweapons. They're the creators. They're the genesis. They get all the funding for bioweapons. And they create their bioweapons labs. But if you're going to be playing around with weaponized pathogens, you're going to need something to destroy those pathogens that you're creating in a lab.
Yeah.
So they took his technology, they suppressed it for decades. The thing is when Royal Raymond Rife was debuting his geniusness to the world, the Germans and the Russians picked up where he left off. They suppressed Rife technology in the United States for decades, from like the 1930s all the way until the internet age, where information could no longer be so easily hidden in our libraries and getting past the the gatekeepers of the medical journals and all that kind of stuff. So these weaponized pathogens, when I started studying DARPA, okay, here I am. I finally, just to back up a little bit on my health journey. I am 30, in my early 30s, and I go on this thing for endocrinology. I want to figure out how to fix the diabetes, and I wanted, glycemic and, just all the insulin resistance and everything. But I hadn't realized that it was the vaccines that I had been given at that time yet, and that had triggered my health crises, or the dental work. And I think it was probably a combination of both that literally the mercury triggered such a medical crisis
So
for
you
me.
got vaccines later in life?
Well, they were telling me as a young woman who wanted to get pregnant that I needed to get my vaccine. So it was the flu shot and the
Oh,
hepatitis B.
got it.
Okay. So I got those 2 shots, and literally within 30 days, my health had deteriorated rapidly. And I'll tell you how I discovered it was the vaccines, because that's a little bit of a journey. But I finally got pregnant, is what I want to say. I got pregnant by not necessarily, I didn't realize how to detox at that time. And I didn't really understand how toxins also disrupted the reproductive system for women in particularly. And I just focused on trying to fix the endocrine dysfunction and the thyroid dysfunction. And I got pregnant within 6 months of doing those holistic health, type corrections. But what I didn't know is that when you get pregnant, when you're filled with toxins, your firstborn is going to chelate a lot of those toxins from you when through your pregnancy. So your first child will be born with a toxic load. It does pass
Oh,
from mother to child. And so I did get pregnant. I had a healthy pregnancy. I tried to eat really good. I wasn't really aware of how GMOs had flooded the market at that time. So the GMOs, the pest, I was always aware of pesticides, but I hadn't fully gone clean yet. So I'm a new mother, I'm nursing. I start having a health crisis like I hadn't had since those vaccines. And here it's about 3-4 years later. And I found out after you have a baby, if you're nursing your baby, your metabolism revs up and you start losing your baby weight. Okay. And so I dropped all my pregnancy weight really super fast when I was nursing my baby, my little baby. And but I became incredibly ill, and I'm talking like the chronic fatigue and chronic pain disabled me. And I could not figure out what I was eating clean. I was watching and learning everything about how to feed and grow a healthy baby. It took me to the Western Aid Price Foundation, Whole Foods, and I couldn't figure out why I was so sick and why this was happening to me. So then I started doing my research again, and I found out. So here I am. I knew that I did not want any vaccines through my pregnancy, even though they were really pressuring me to vaccinate during my pregnancy. I told them, I just found out I'm pregnant. I've been waiting to have a baby for 5 years. You
right.
want to put something in my body foreign? Hell no. I was like crunchy then. I was like, no way are you putting any foreign substance in my body. I don't want drugs. I want nothing. I do not want to miscarry this baby. I have a healthy delivery, healthy baby boy. And now they're trying to vaccinate him. And I was like, well, I want to talk to the pediatrician. So no vaccines at the hospital. And I'll just talk to the doctor. So then I realized I have to do this deep dive. This is like 2010. I have to do a deep dive into vaccines because I did not know if they were safe for my child. And I didn't know that they were tied to my health issues yet. So I'm putting Oh Mama Mia together, which is our grandmother's memoirs,
Right.
during this time where I'm at home as a new mom. And I wasn't working. I got laid off through the whole mortgage meltdown of 2008. I got 2 years of like income because I stayed, and they doubled my income. And I literally stayed an employee at the bank until I had my baby. And then they terminated me and they gave me double my salary. So that afforded me to stay home with my child for 2 years. And here's what I did. I started working on Mama Mia, which is our grandmother's memoirs. And I decide, okay, if I'm going to vaccinate this child, I'm going to go full on deep, learn everything about vaccines. So I dive into the CDC's website, the National Institutes of Health website, the Institutes of Medicine website. I have tons of mothers all around me dealing with autism. And, you're kind of scared. Well, as soon as I started researching the vaccines, what the ingredients are, I looked up every material, I looked up every vaccine package insert, read everything disclosed in the little fine print, every ingredient, cross-referenced with the material safety data sheets because I didn't know what they were. And I was like, oh my gosh, everything in a vaccine is toxic and harms the body. And I was just like,
I'd really like to see that research because there's a lot of people that, are medical professionals and people that are even trusted resources that really effectively dispel that that information. And I have never seen the data. You did all the work that I didn't have time or inclination to do, but I would love to see it so that I can
well,
really
this was
digest that.
2010. They hadn't
Yeah,
scrubbed their websites yet.
right.
I did pull down a lot of data, but I'm gonna tell you two key pieces, two white papers that I did download was Healthy People 2020 and ID 2020. White papers that tell you everything that's going to happen in 2020 with the COVID, with the whole COVID. I'm reading in 2010 as a new mother, trying to figure out if she's going to vaccinate her child, reading all the information that I possibly can with the vaccine package inserts, every ingredient, excipient. I'm looking at all of the vaccine injury data that's voluntarily collected through the vaccine injury program, the 1986 Act. I'm looking for safety stuff. There's no safety of the vaccines, nothing for me to read. I'm looking at all these families who got gaslighted, who, have a vaccine injury compensation program claims, and how they like gaslight these families. And the only families that were winning compensation for their child being destroyed after the vaccinations were like other scientists and other really intelligent people who were like, we know you're lying. And they were able to get multi-million payouts from the vaccine injury compensation program, the VICP program. And it was just a kangaroo court, and only the most educated parents could walk away, with some type of compensation to take care of their very injured children. So I'm reading all this in 2010 with a 1-year-old child, and then I'm putting my brother, I'm going to bring up grandma's book because I basically started digitizing all of her photographs, and started digitizing them. And I was using Google Picasa. They had the facial recognition. This is like totally new technology back in 2010.
Mhm.
So I have these thousands of photos from whatever. I have thousands of photos, and I have my own photos that that were, that I'm digitizing. And I do a facial recognition on myself. And I'm like looking at myself from literally my earliest years all the way to 2010. I got married in early, mid 2000s. I go, okay, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I look healthy and happy. Like 2006 rolls around, and I look at myself and I am sick. I am inflamed, I'm heavy, overweight, and I know that's when I was having all these issues with the chronic pain and the fatigue and chemical sensitivities and brain fog and all that kind of stuff. I go, oh my gosh, what happened to me then? So then I go back to all my medical records, and it's all timestamped. So I go, oh, what was I doing in, this month of this year, where you can see a visible change in my appearance from this date to this date in this digitized photos. Go back to my medical records to that timestamp, and sure enough, you see the hepatitis B and the flu shot.
Whoa.
And I had just done all that research for, am I going to inject my child with this? And then I started bawling. I said, oh my gosh, I was injured by my shots in
Wow.
when I was trusting the doctors. And
Right.
I was in tears, and then I was mad. And then I became an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like I started sharing all my research. I was educating other moms who had little kids, and I was being told I was a radical. And, but I had all the data. So I was speaking truth to help people, not hurt their children. Like if you have this knowledge, and they made you so afraid of diseases. And here I am, and I know after researching everything with Royal Raymond Rife, and being introduced to the Western A. Price Foundation, to all of the work of the dentist Western Price. Oh my gosh, Dr. Price's work in the 1930s on nutrition and dental blew my mind.
Mm.
So what I'm saying is my health crisis in 2006, I believe, was triggered by a combination of getting dental work done with amalgams and the vaccines, which has thimerosal in it, which is mercury. So I had two interventions, medically, dental and medical, that had mercury. And then as soon as I figured out, like as soon as I'm like by 2010, I go and I get all this work done to find out my toxicity levels. And then I started diving deep into toxicity, and I had never detoxed myself from the mercury. I had never detoxed from the, I literally threw out every Teflon pan. I only started cooking things with, glass and stainless steel and wood. And I threw out tinfoil. I mean, I was, I was like, everything is toxic. They're poisoning us with our food. They're poisoning our water with fluoride. It's no wonder people can't get pregnant. No wonder people are getting cancer. No wonder children are getting autism. We are being poisoned for profit. And when I made all those connections, and I saw that they were creating a surveillance state to monitor who has been vaccinated and who's not, because I was also reading up on the ID 2020 and the RFIDs. I'm like, these eugenics elites want to destroy the population and make a dime on you, like make all their profits from you from cradle to grave. And I was mad. I was like, this is not a coincidence. These are not acts of nature. This is intentional scientific fraud. This is intentional medical indoctrination. It is an intentional medical industrial complex. It's a business plan. It's a for-profit racket where they were telling you that your child can't go to education, can't get an education if they're not caught up on their shots. You can't work at your job if you're not caught up on your shots. And all of it was voluntary then. Back in the, 2010, 2012, 20 to 2015, they started taking away exemptions from Californians for children, and the autism and the peanut allergies, and that was at an all-time high. And here I had healthy
Because I
children.
mean, I was a kid in the 70s and the 80s, and there was, I think, in those 2 decades of being a kid, I think I knew one person that had a peanut allergy.
Right.
And it was
Because
like,
it's an
what the heck? We
excipient.
didn't even understand. How could you be allergic to peanuts, right? It didn't make any sense.
I mean, we were the peanut butter generation, peanut butter and
Yeah.
jelly.
Oh, I
By the
ate
time
1,000 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches between, you know, kindergarten and third grade. Jeez.
it's because it was intentional. And also, so just in the timeline of vaccines, right? So when our parents, the baby boomers, got vaccinated, they got like 1 to 3 shots. By
Right.
the time the 70s came around for us to get our shots to go into kindergarten in the 70s, it was like 7 to 8 shots. By the 1980s, it was in the teens, like 12 to 15 shots. Okay. Here's the big thing. In 1986, so many children were having severe health complications and reactions adverse reactions to their shots, that parents basically were going after all the vaccine manufacturers and were trying to put them out of business because they were not making the, they weren't accepting responsibility for their harm to living children, and they were gaslighting parents. So anyhow, they ended up creating the act, the 1986 act, where President Reagan basically signed into law that there was going to be safety studies, there was going to be a vaccine injury compensation program. So if your child's that 1 in a million that gets hurt, they can go in and get compensated for their care. And there is a monitoring system, which is the oh my gosh, the vaccine adverse events reporting system, VAERS. So they put all this stuff in place in 1986. And I literally read every single piece of that act. And there has never been, and here I am, I'm just a young mom. There's no safety studies. There's tons of vaccine VAERS reports, reporting data. And I'm a data analyst in the corporate world. I was doing data analytics. So I was pulling all that data from the VAERS, and I was looking at the trends to hepatitis B, and that's the first shot they give your baby in the hospital. So my son did not get that shot. And I saw so many mothers struggling with their children it makes me sad. Like, I would cry because I would see all these mothers go in and get their shots, and their babies would blow up with inflammation like I experienced, with the things that I couldn't understand or explain what was happening to me with the level of inflammation in the brain and the body from these toxins that should never be in our bodies. And the thing is as an adult, I can talk to it. I can write it down. I can describe it. These babies and these toddlers cannot describe what is happening in their bodies, but I can, because I experienced it as an adult, and I see the same symptoms.
Well, and they tell you, like, I got one flu shot as a young adult. I was working at a place and they were giving them out, and I was like, yeah, what the hell? I didn't think one way or another of it. And they tell you right off the bat, well, you might get sick from this. And at that point, I was like, I don't know if I want this. And I should have listened, but it didn't affect me. I mean, maybe it did, but I didn't get sick from it. But they tell you that, well, this is just weakened pathogens, and your body just can fight them off. Once it learns how to fight them off, then it can fight them off again. But they don't tell you that there's anything else in it. I mean, they
Right.
sell it to you as it's just this real simple, we've just hobbled these little guys and they're going to shoot them into your bloodstream, and your white blood cells are going to come and kill them, and then they know how to kill them and you'll be fine.
Yeah. So here's the thing with this. So I want to tell you, after each pregnancy, when I was telling you, I lost all my baby weight. And do you know that mercury in the body, when it comes in, to the body's natural way to protect you from mercury is to encase it in fat to protect your organs from being damaged. So that's explained a lot of my weight gain and inflammation. But here's the thing. After the baby was born and I'm nursing, so the body's natural way to protect you from mercury toxicity or heavy metal toxicity is to encase it in fat. So that explains a lot of where if you have unexplained weight gain, that even if you're eating healthy and working out, that fat is there protecting you from the heavy metals. If you can't release it, and if you have the genetic disadvantage of being, MTHFR, which is impaired detox pathways, you're screwed. Your bucket's going to fill up with toxins and your body's going to break. And that's what I experienced firsthand. And so after each pregnancy, the mercury toxicity, the fat melted away and dumped all that mercury into my bloodstream. And I had severe mercury toxicity poisoning after each baby was born.
Wow.
And it impaired me for 2 years. Severe pain, severe chronic pain all over my body, severe chronic fatigue. I'm talking so weak, so weak with chronic fatigue that I couldn't pick my baby up, hardly pick my baby up to carry out of the crib. Like it was, sometimes I would wake up and I couldn't even make a fist because I was as weak as a kitten.
Wow.
So I tell you these stories because I experienced the depths of pain, weakness, cognitive impairment, chemical sensitivity where I can't even clean or use go around any chemicals. Try telling a mom with a new baby, like who wants everything to be clean, but she can't use chemicals to clean her house. And how is she
Right.
going to clean her house? It was a learning curve. But here's what I learned. Just to get to the Rife machine, which you're using right
I
now.
am using it right now as we're talking. Oh, it just finished.
Oh, wow. I was hoping I would get to that before you did that. That thing, that wand right there
Yeah.
saved my life after my second child was born because my ability to fight infections, I was getting infection after infection and being bedbound for months after my second child was born. I had no ability to fight. I had no immune system helping me fight these infections. And I was not going to go get antibiotics. I'd learned everything about antibiotics. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So Nancy had bought a new Rife machine. And she invited me to a hotel at somewhere in San Clemente. She had anyhow, she invited me there and she's like, I want you to try out my new Rife machine. She gave me a foot bath. She had that wand there. And I'm going to tell you, I had severe dental infections that I had paid thousands of dollars for root canals and crowns. And the dental infections were so bad that my whole face, my whole face for like 5 years was in chronic pain after that dental work. And I didn't have the money at that point to keep on, getting more dental work done. So she's like, oh, there's tons of dental programs. And I had a root canal and I had studied Western Price and I had learned that a dead tooth is just bacteria. The worst bacteria that's anaerobic is literally causing that infection from that dead tooth, and it spreads along the meridians in the body. So I would have pain from my dental infection that would make my whole jaw hurt, and it would travel down. I would have pain in my chest, near my heart, and then it would travel down my arm all the way to my elbow.
Whoa.
Okay. And I had learned through Western A. Price's work that root canals cause congestive heart failure, arthritis, and everything. And it's from that anaerobic, deadly bacteria that's trapped in the dead tooth. So then I was like, oh my gosh, Nancy, okay, let me tell you, I've been living with pain, like this pain, along with all the other stuff for 5 years. And Nancy runs the dental program, gives me a foot bath detox. I put the dental frequency wand on my face. And I'm not kidding you. Within 24 hours, I had no pain on my face.
Wow.
I had tears. I would cry for like 24 hours because I couldn't believe the miracle of that.
Wow.
I was so thankful. I was like, I really felt for the first time that I wasn't going to die because I felt like I was going to die and leave my 3-year-old and my infant daughter motherless. And growing up motherless myself, I was so heartbroken. I was like, I just kept on praying. I said, Lord, please help me find a way that I won't die and I can see my children turn 18 or make it to their wedding or hold my first grandchild. And I just kept on praying this. And then when Nancy had me do the first Rife treatment and I didn't have that pain, and it did come back, but I didn't have that pain for 24 hours. And I
Yeah, yeah.
knew.
And there was that's a significant tell right there. If I mean, you're just putting this little wand that glows on you, and you don't know what's happening. It's just this glowing wand.
Right. I mean, it was amazing, Joe. I can't even tell you. That's what sold me. I went out and bought a Rife machine. Like I told my husband, I know we don't have the money, but it's either $5,000 for new dental work or $5,000 for this device.
Right.
Um, we brought it, we bought one. I use it. I bought it in 2012. I use it to this day. And my
Yeah.
children use it. I've used it on my husband. My husband had a MRSA infection on his neck that like got out of control from shaving.
Mhm.
And I was like, you either going to go to the hospital and get that checked out, or you're going to let me do my holistic health on you. Okay. And he was like, okay. I'm like, that is a serious infection. You never let infections get out of control. That's what I learned
Yeah.
because I'm immune compromised.
Right.
Infections take me out. Like
Right.
I will be bedridden. So I had my husband do the Rife machine, doing topicals, doing the frequencies. 3 days, the MRSA was gone, no antibiotics.
Wow.
My kids, they got whooping cough. I did the pertussis frequency.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.